Okay, so I want to welcome everyone to this week's edition of the Northern Nerdcast, where we showcase the geeky, nerdy people, groups, and events that happen in and around the city of Edmonton. The Northern Nerdcast is a proud member of the Alberta Podcast Network, powered by ATB. Please feel free to head on over to albertapodcastnetwork.com for a list of amazing Alberta-made podcasts. We would also like to encourage everyone out there that if you enjoy this episode, to share it with your friends on social media. This way, we are able to help grow the community here in Edmonton and keep everyone up to date on the latest news and information regarding the geeky, nerdy people, groups, and events that happen in and around the city of Edmonton. Also, if you or someone you know would like to be featured on our show, please feel free to head on over to northernnerdnetwork.com. Now, let's get on with the show. Okay, so welcome back once again to another edition of the Nerdcast. My name is, like I said earlier, Dan Schessel, and on today's edition of the Nerdcast, we do have a lovely producer and wife, Trina Schessel. Say hello.
Hello, everybody.
And of course, we have the lovely, as always, Chelsea Thompson.
Hey, guys.
And on today's edition of the Nerdcast, we also have Sam. Oh my goodness, I am so dead from Extra Life. It's not even funny.
I was gonna say, I'm surprised to see you here. I thought you would be tucked up in bed by now.
Oh, I am going straight to bed as soon as I get a chance here. Sam, say hello.
Hi, how are you guys tonight?
We are doing well. I'm surprisingly alive still, so that's good. We're good. Everything's good.
We figured we'd just let Dan come on and tell us a little bit about his experience at Extra Life, and then he's gonna go to bed. So
yes,
how was your weekend?
Yeah. So like we usually start off each show by asking our guest what's on his geek shelf, but I'm gonna quickly take over for the next few minutes here and do a little impromptu talk a quick bit about Extra Life. Just because it was something we did, I did for the last 24 hours, was take part in this event, and so it is now over. I am still alive, and still
You made it. You made
awake. I did have a bit of a nap this afternoon, so yes, yeah. Anyways, so. For 24 hours, we were raising money for the Edmonton Stollery. And yes, and if you'd like to still donate to that cause, please head on over to northernnerdnetwork.com, click on that Extra Life link, hit that donate button, and it goes straight to the Edmonton Stollery, and it helps those beautiful kids get the care and stuff that they need.
The not so beautiful ones too.
They're all beautiful. And so, yes, it's all for the kids, and it's great. It's such a great cause. But I wanted to talk real quick about our Extra Life team in Edmonton, and I want to tell you what an amazing job that they have done. They keep outdoing themselves every single year. This year we had, from what I understand, was about 200 gamers from all over Edmonton came and joined us as we played games for 24 hours, raising money for the Edmonton Stollery. And I'd love to tell you guys right now that the team for Edmonton Extra Life, now get this, raised $76,000.
Wow.
American. Now, I also want to just point out right now, there was a sort of a challenge from the ESA that per capita, whoever made the most money per capita got an extra $30,000. Now, this thing was neck and neck throughout the night, but the Edmonton Extra Life community pulled ahead, and we got an additional $30,000 American for the beautiful kids over at the Stollery. What an amazing, amazing job by everybody out there who did some fundraising, who did all the hard work and effort that went into this. Just an absolute triumph for the Edmonton community here. So good, so good. And like I said, I have a lot of games that I was streaming all night long. I met lots of cool people all night. It was so good. It was a lot of fun. I had a great time. And yeah, what an amazing night. Yeah. So that is all I have tonight for everybody out there.
Dan, well gamed.
Thank you. And we are already planning next year. Yes. So stay tuned for all that kind of stuff. I am going to pass it back over to Trina here. She is now going to be the co-host or host for tonight. Thank you, Trina, for doing this. Thank you, Sam, for joining us. Thank you, Chelsea. And I am going to be out here.
Go
See
to
you
bed.
guys.
Nighty night.
Yeah, everything's all good.
Tight.
It automatically posts and stuff. So we're good. All right.
All right. So let's go back to our segment called What's on Your Geek Shelf? Sam, have you brought something to show us?
Well, I did. I actually brought this guy here. Who's
Nice.
He's kind of the subject of my talk, and I actually didn't own this guy beforehand. He was given to me from White Knights Collectibles on White Ave. They had a spare classic Wolverine statue kicking around, and so they gave it to me in light of the campaign that I'm trying to spearhead.
Nice. That's awesome. I lost my notes.
How about you, Trina? What's one of your favorite things being highlighted on your guys' geek shelf right now?
That's a good question.
Do you have any new games that have recently come into the house at all?
No, I bought a new Star Wars shirt. I'm I'm excited about my vintage classic Star Wars.
Nice.
It's very 70s. I'm enjoying the retro Star Wars shirt.
Excellent.
Yeah. It's good times.
Mm-hmm.
What about you, Chelsea?
I can't remember if I've said this already on What's on Your Geek Shelf or not, but I'll say it again because it remains one of my favorites. I have not too many collectibles, a few here and there. I watch and really enjoy Steven Universe, so I have some Steven Universe figurines, but what remains my favorite is the homemade crochet Wicket made by our very own Trina that she crocheted me. It's a little crocheted Ewok Wicket figure that goes with my I have a knit cowl complete with Ewok ears that I wear when it gets cold out. So
awesome.
that to this
I think
day
you have
remains
mentioned that before.
one of my favorite things on my geek shelf.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm new here. Chelsea, is this usually where we go to our first break?
No, not quite yet. No.
Okay.
So after we do What's on Our Geek Shelf, we check in a little bit and see how everybody's week has been. So we usually like to start with our guest. So Sam, tell us a bit about how your week went this past week. How was it? How you doing?
Pretty good. Let's see, what did I do that was geek related? Well, I bought advance tickets to Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't get advance tickets to Justice League. I'll have to look into that again. I didn't see the Black Panther trailer, but I bought the latest issues of DC Metal, which I've been devouring, which I think is a fantastic new storyline. And yeah, I think that wraps it up for me.
Awesome.
Excellent.
That's a pretty great week.
Mm-hmm.
Chelsea?
I'm trying to think. My week hasn't been too geeky or nerdy. I mean, I guess the interactive, so over Halloween, I was in an interactive haunted house as a performer, which was a lot of fun, scaring the pants off people. So that ran a few days after Halloween, this past Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So yesterday, last night was our closing night. We had 2 sold out shows. It was pretty great. They were really great audiences. They were sold out, and we had some really people that we freaked out quite a bit, which was a lot of fun. And then, this afternoon I had an audition for a short film. Fun. Mm-hmm. How about you?
I have no idea what I did this week.
Wrangled the small people.
It's Halloween. So the one thing I did not like about this week is that it's daylight saving time. And everybody always says oh, you get an extra hour of sleep. Well, that's not true if you have small children. You have an extra hour of awake, grumpy small children. So that's my little rant for today. So Dan was at Extra Life all night, and my friend, who's also named Sam, came and spent the night with me, and we had some wine and some nice girl time, and it was good times.
Send the kids to bed and get to chill out a little bit.
Yeah, it was awesome. But yes, we stayed up a little too late as well. So. Everyone's a little tired today.
So yes, before we dive into chatting in depth with Sam and asking him all of the burning questions that the public wants to know, we're going to take a little break and talk a little bit about one of our fabulous sponsors, if everybody's all right with that.
All right, let's see here. Hey Chelsea, did you know that ATV is a proud sponsor of many of the events we like to attend, such as the Edmonton Expo, the Fringe Festival, Animathon, and so much more?
I did, Trina, but not only that, they're also involved with so many new and up-and-coming projects, just like the Alberta Podcast Network.
That's right. It's incredible to see the involvement they have right here in our own backyard.
Yep. That is just one of the many ways ATV sets itself apart from the other big financial institutions. You can see your money in action supporting a project happening right in Alberta.
Exactly, and it's all a part of this amazing initiative, ATV Listens.
That's right. And if our wonderful listeners and viewers out there want more info about how ATV Listens and all the great projects they support in Alberta, they can go to atv.com to find out more.
All right.
So now we get into the good stuff for the evening. So, Sam, tell us a little bit about the campaign that you've started. Why are you a guest on our show this evening? Why do we have you on? Tell us all about it.
Sure. Well, thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. So I'm here basically because I want to build a much bigger version of this guy, Wolverine, up in Fort McMurray. And so myself and my friend Brian LaBelle, who started the petition to build a Wolverine statue in Edmonton a few years ago, we've started a crowdfunding site, a crowdfunding campaign to build a Wolverine statue in Fort McMurray.
Awesome.
So why I guess is my question. What's your drive behind this? Why a Wolverine statue and why in Fort McMurray?
Well, 2 reasons. One, because Wolverine is from Northern Alberta in most of the comics, and in the first X-Men movie, he's revealed to be from Northern Alberta. And the previous petition was just a petition, so it's just people putting their names out on the internet, but there's no funding or accountability involved, so it didn't really take off from there. And the second reason, and I think it's something that I hope most Albertans can sympathize with, is that Fort McMurray's gone through a really hard time in the last couple of years. First with the collapse of the oil sands economy, and then with last year's wildfires, which destroyed 2,400 homes and became Canada's most expensive natural disaster. So I felt like this is kind of one way to kind of give back to Fort McMurray in a way that's kind of fun, whimsical, and kind of like what Vulcan, Alberta has done with Star Trek. and how they built a Starship Enterprise, and Leonard Nimoy was there, and they've created this pop culture industry just based on their name. I'm hoping that something similar can happen with Fort McMurray and Wolverine.
Nice. What have you always liked Wolverine? Like, is Wolverine kind of a personal? Do you have a personal connection to Wolverine?
I'm more of a Batman guy, to be honest. I actually have Batman posters on the wall in my room here. But no, I mean, Wolverine is appealing to me and to most people because he's not sort of a classic superhero where, he wakes up and finds himself drawn to do good things for good people. He's actually kind of an anti-hero. He's a bit of an outcast. He's a bit of a loner. He actually typically likes to be left by himself somewhere in Western Canada, either in the Rocky Mountains or in a forest somewhere. And it's only when the X-Men or somebody else comes and tells him, hey, we need to save the world, and you're the only guy who can do it, that he reluctantly gets dragged into a lot of these stories.
So the original petition to build the statue here in Edmonton, where did the kernel of that idea come from? And I guess the subsequent Kickstarter or crowdfunding campaign and idea to move it up to Fort McMurray came from the original idea. But I always like, and it's a phrase I use often in this show, hearing the origin story, like where the initial idea, where the seed came from.
Yeah, it's actually a great story. It was Brian LaBelle, who's an avid comic book fan. He's got 21,000 comic books, last I heard.
Wow.
He started the petition 4 years ago, back when everyone in Edmonton was talking about Rogers Arena. And we were talking about the downtown revitalization that an arena would give. And there was obviously a lot of discussion about public money and how to spend it. So as a joke, Brian suggested, hey, why don't we build a 1,000-foot Wolverine statue in downtown Edmonton to be an economic driver and to draw people into the city. And it started off as a joke, but actually a lot of people kind of got behind the idea and they started to sign the petition. So then he kind of scaled it down. Okay, not a 1,000-foot statue. How about a 10-foot statue? And that got a lot of attention and a lot of signatures. But then it sort of fizzled off because after a while, people's attention moved elsewhere. And so I'd kind of had that in the back of my mind for quite a few years. And then after the wildfires, I was kind of thinking, what's a good way to give back to Fort McMurray in a way that, beyond just giving money to the Red Cross, for example, which is a completely valid and great way to help, but in other ways that could, kind of make a permanent impact on the city and its recovery. And the one thing about Wolverine is that he's got this incredible healing factor. He can recover from any kind of trauma. And so to me, that was kind of a great metaphor for what Fort McMurray is going through and will have to go through for years to come. And so I reached out to Brian and we chatted and I suggested the idea of doing the Fort McMurray because the other reason why I don't think it took off in Edmonton is that Wolverine is from northern Alberta. But really, if you look at a map of Alberta, Edmonton is not northern Alberta. And I worked at the Northern Alberta Institute of Technology, and there's lots of things that are called Northern Alberta here in Edmonton. But we are actually pretty much in the center. Yeah, we're smack dab in the center of the province. We're actually even slightly south of the center of the province. Whereas I did some research, and Fort McMurray definitely is in the northern part of the province. And Wolverines, the species, actually still live up in the northern half, the northern third of the province. So it seemed like it's an idea that kind of aligns a lot of things, a lot of realities about Alberta today, and a lot of conceptions that we have about Alberta today, all together in one symbol that I hope can kind of encourage and excite people to do something positive for a community that could use some love right now.
Nice. Now, do you have any kind of concept? I guess your little guy there would be kind of your inspiration, but have you actually spoken with architects or anything, artists, on what it's going to look like?
Well, I've spoken to a bronze sculptor as to the costs and what it might look like. And in terms of the pose, I don't really have a pose in mind because I actually kind of want to give that to the people of Fort McMurray so they can vote on. So an idea might be, let's give like 4 or 5, really cool poses of the statue, and then residents of Fort McMurray will just vote on the best one.
Yeah.
And in terms of the actual pose, the only 2 things I'm thinking of is that he's got these adamantium claws, and so we want to be able to have kids come and play and interact with the statue. So we don't want them to, poke an eye out because he's got these things. So maybe if he's got his arms sort of inwards towards his body, that's a little safer. And two, we want to have a pose where we can put on an Oilers jersey or even a Flames jersey come playoff time, Eskimos or Stampeders. Another way to kind of celebrate his love of Alberta sports and Alberta communities.
Cool.
So now talk to us a little bit about, so the idea evolved and took off and you picked Fort McMurray as the site and started your crowdfunding campaign. Talk to us a little bit about that. How's that going? Have you had experience with crowdfunding campaigns before? Is this your first?
Yeah, I've had a little bit of experience. I used to work at a post-secondary institution here in Edmonton, and I kind of oversaw crowdfunding from that side for how students would crowdfund. And I've contributed or been part of one or two crowdfunding campaigns before. So this one is starting off. We started off last week. We've gotten a couple $1,000s in. We're asking for $85,000, and the reason for that is because there's a statue of RoboCop that is crowdfunded in the city of Detroit. Mm-hmm. And they have just finished the statue. It's going to be installed in the spring. And so I contacted those organizers and I asked how much did it cost and what were the steps involved in getting copyrights and permissions. And it worked out to about 67,000 US. So that is basically 85,000 Canadian. And I think that's a pretty reasonable amount because if you look at most public art in the province, it's usually in the 6-7-figure dollar range. So for 85,000 for like a permanent bronze sculpture, that's not too bad. And so, yeah, we just started off and we've got basically 45 days to raise, a lot of money, but it's basically $1 per resident of Fort McMurray. Or, if there was maybe 10,000 people in Alberta who saw the Logan movie and they each put in $10, that would cover the cost of the statue.
So have you been in contact with Marvel or Disney at all about the rights to the character in order to
Not
use
yet,
it?
because I think it's better to beg for forgiveness than ask for permission.
Yeah.
And what the RoboCop folks did is they contacted the MGM Studios, which owns the copyright to RoboCop. And they said that as long as it's a non-profit initiative, that nobody's making any money off of it, nobody's really trying to make royalties or do anything that changes the aspect of the character, they were okay with it. Yeah, and so I'm hoping that Marvel or Disney will take the same approach. And when we started up the campaign, we posted something on the YMM Geeks page, which is the geek page for Fort McMurray. Yeah. And Chris Claremont, who is one of the long-time, really well-known X-Men writers of the comic book, he saw that post and he chimed in and he said, Len Wein, who's the creator of Wolverine and who tragically passed away a few months ago, he said Len would have loved the idea of a Wolverine statue. And awesome. So we're hoping that, that endorsement can kind of mean something. And at the Edmonton Expo a few weeks ago in September, Larry Hama, who's also a famous artist for Wolverine, he was here and I spoke to him briefly. And Larry didn't really look up from his sketch pad when he talked to me, but he did say that a statue of Wolverine in Alberta would make sense. Yeah. So I'm hoping we can kind of go with that. And then I'm also hoping that we can reach out to some well-known Alberta comic book industry figures like Todd McFarlane and a few people who might be able to come on side and give us some support on this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome.
So now, as the project has been moving forward and the crowdfunding has gone live and you're taking more steps and contacting more people, who have you been in touch with in Fort McMurray? Have you talked to city council or residents? And talk to me a little bit about the feedback that you're getting from the residents of Fort McMurray about the project.
Yeah, so I pitched the idea to the Wood Buffalo Public Art Committee back in the spring, and they kind of look at all the public art initiatives that go up in the city. And, a few of them had some raised eyebrows because it was kind of out of left field for them. But most of them liked the idea, and they were kind of excited to see where this can go. And I also contacted Nerdvana, which is the one comic book store up in Fort McMurray. and they're really excited, and they're helping promote it as well. And they just had an election in Fort McMurray, so I've emailed the new mayor and city council as well to let them know that here's something that's going on that you might want to, I guess, have on your radar in the next couple of months.
So you don't get blindsided.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice.
Now, if our wonderful listeners and viewers out there want to contribute to the campaign or want to learn more about it, or get in touch with you if they, have something they feel they need to share, where can they find the crowdfunding campaign online? Where can they find all that information? Where can they find you?
Sure. So if they want to contribute or learn more about the campaign, all they have to do is Google Indiegogo Wolverine Statue. And it's the first link that comes up. The site is Indiegogo, which does a lot of crowdfunding. And then they can also reach out to us on Twitter. We have @Wolverine Statue. That's the Twitter handle. And then my personal Twitter is Singing Sam. So that's at SINGHINGSAM.
Awesome.
I don't actually sing, though.
Mm-hmm.
Aw, that's really sad.
So I want to go back for a second because you talked about having the statue built in bronze. When you were doing research, did you look at different mediums, different type of designs, and sort of what led you to settle on Wolverine?
Well, bronze seems to be the most cost-effective and permanent type of material to use for a statue. Mm-hmm. And in terms of other fictional characters, there's a Captain America statue in Brooklyn, in New York. There's a Rocky Balboa statue in Philadelphia. The RoboCop statue is bronze as well. And I just found out there's a statue of Fonzie from Happy Days in Milwaukee. His nickname is the Bronze Fonz.
Nice.
Yeah, so it seems like the
bronze
perfect material.
logo doesn't really have that much of a ring to it, but
yeah, exactly. So if Milwaukee can have the Bronze Fonz, surely Fort McMurray and Alberta can have Wolverine.
Excellent. Yeah. So you talked a little bit about how it wasn't necessarily like your first go-to comic book character that you personally read often, but in undertaking this project, have you done more research on him or come across a particular Wolverine storyline or story arc or a particular set in the comics that sort of for you is your favorite Wolverine storyline or the epitome of?
Yeah, I mean, I've done a ton of reading on Wolverine in the last few months, for sure. And because in part I was doing it just to look at all the Canadian references, because it comes out that he's always from Alberta, or he's living in the Yukon, or living in Vancouver at some point. So that part I enjoyed. And then probably in terms of the stories, I actually like it when he goes to Japan, because when I was growing up, I read this Japanese comic book called Lone Wolf and Cub, which was like a really amazingly written, amazingly drawn comic book from the 70s about sort of pre-manga comic book about a Ronin character, a masterless samurai who was basically trying to clear his name and get revenge on the people who did him wrong. And to me, that's kind of what Wolverine is. He's like a Ronin. He is his own master. He plays by his own rules. He likes to be left alone, but he's often dragged into bigger conflicts with other characters and other people. So to me, whenever he goes to Japan, it kind of ties into that whole samurai ethos that he represents.
Nice.
Now, this might be like shooting for the stars, but why not? Have you done any research into like potential contact information for Hugh Jackman when this thing gets built and is unveiled in Fort McMurray, if he would come for the unveiling?
I did a little bit of research, actually, and it turns out Hugh he's a very charitable guy. He's involved in a lot of charities around the world, some of which are crowdfunding based, so that's great. Now, the obvious answer is to look for him on Twitter. and I have looked on him on Twitter, but he's got like 3 million followers, and so to get somebody's attention on Twitter, I think is actually fairly difficult if they have that many followers. So I found out who his agent is and his agency in Los Angeles, and I sent them like a typewritten letter. I sent them snail mail because I figure at least that way somebody has to read it. Somebody has to
physically open it up and
Yeah, and I actually think snail mail is probably a more legitimate way to get people's attention, because who doesn't like getting an actual letter, not a bill, but an actual letter in the mail these days?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, awesome. A physical letter that somebody's got to hold in their hand and actually give their like attention and focus to, rather than it being like one in a sea of like thousands of emails in their inbox in a day.
Yeah, that you look at when you're in an elevator or brushing your teeth in the morning and you disregard.
Yeah. So have you heard anything back from them at all yet?
Not yet. I figure the letter is probably just arrived in California, and so hopefully his agent will read it and hopefully pass on the message to Hugh. So hopefully in the next week or so.
Nice.
Awesome.
Well, we wish you the best of luck with that, for sure.
Yeah, I'm also actually hoping to try and get onto Kevin Smith's radar, because he's the director. He loves comic books and he loves Canada.
He loves Edmonton. He is an Oilers fan.
Exactly. Yeah, and so I'm hoping to reach out to him either on Twitter or through his podcasts and see if he might be interested as well.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, amazing. So now, campaigning for, I guess, good, we'll call it, because this is a real kind of feel good, like, let's do something good and give back to the community kind of situation you've got going here, which is awesome to hear about. Has it sort of piqued your interest once this project is settled? Do you think you might tackle another one along the same vein, or?
Maybe. I think so, because I think it's I think in today's day and age, there's a lot of things that are kind of dividing us, and as a community, as a province, as a city, or whatnot, as a country, there's a lot of things that kind of drive people apart. And I think we need to also remember what are the things that pull us together as a community, and what do we, as Albertans or as Edmontonians, what do we celebrate together? What do we enjoy together? And I'd love to see that if something like this takes off, and just like Vulcan has done with Star Trek, that Alberta could become this really cool hotspot of like really interesting
nerd culture,
nerdery, like all over. And wouldn't it be great to kind of tell that story to the rest of the world about how Albertans have fun?
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, you pitched this at a night at McEwen recently, and I'm not sure how you pronounce
the Pecha Kucha.
Sorry?
The Pecha Kucha.
Yes. What can you tell us a little bit more about what that is? Because it sounded like, from what I read, it sounded like kind of an interesting platform.
Yeah, it's kind of like a TED Talk. It comes from Japan, and the idea was to communicate or basically have a presentation, but in a short, concise way that doesn't bore the audience. So what it is it's a presentation of 20 slides, 20 images, and you have 20 seconds per image. So it ends up being 6 minutes and 40 seconds. And you can talk about anything. So I did mine at McEwen University under the city's Next Gen Committee, which organizes these. And there was 9 other presentations, and they were all over the map, like all about various completely different things. Like one guy did a presentation on how to design an escape room, which is super cool.
Yeah. That's really cool. That sounds like something that would be interesting to go and see.
Yeah, like if you can't make something interesting in 6 minutes, then it's probably you need to go back to the drawing board to excite people about it.
It's not worth even talking about at that point. Yeah, nice.
And so overall, when you talk to people about this project, when you interact with people about this project, what sort of responses have you been getting? Has it, is there generally a lot of like interest and good feedback coming your way from the people that learn about this project?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, like most people love the idea, or they think it's something neat that they've never thought about. When I mentioned the Fort McMurray idea, then it really lights up in their heads because, I think everyone here knows that that community has been through a lot in the last couple of years. And so I think they really appreciate that. And they also appreciate the fact that, Wolverine is from Alberta, and there's actually one storyline where he's from Cold Lake.
Nice.
And so that's kind of a bit of a controversy that we have to deal with, which I think we'll handle as time comes. But like most comic book characters, like in the Marvel universe, they mostly tend to be from New York City. And in the DC universe, they come from cities that don't really exist, like Gotham and Metropolis. So of the two big publishers, no character aside from Wolverine is so strongly identified, not just with Canada, but with Alberta. And I feel like this is something for us to embrace.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, I think we're going to take one more little short break, and then we're going to talk about some up-and-coming events. And then one more time for our lovely listeners and viewers, we'll get you to tell them all where we can find this wonderful project of yours. So Trina, take it away.
The Northern Nerdcast is a proud member of the Alberta Podcast Network, powered by ATV. And now our little network is even bigger. Recently, we just added another batch of podcasts spanning all the way down into the Calgary region. Head on over to albertapodcastnetwork.com to hear some great Alberta-made podcasts, like Assumptions. Two friends, a Christian and an atheist, try to understand the other's worldview, created by Daniel Melville Jones and Kyle Marshall. And Desktop, a technology podcast focusing on the intersection between how we use it and how it affects us, hosted by Robert Attrell and Mike Attrell. So head on over to albertapodcastnetwork.com for more information. And right now you can hear all those great podcasts and more, including the Northern Nerdcast, by downloading the CKU app right on your Google Play, or right from Google Play or from the Apple Store. Smooth.
Awesome. So, Trina, what wonderful events do we have coming up in and around the city for all of our nerdy friends to go and check out?
There are quite a few. There is Zelda Trivia with live music by X Points. That is on December 1st at the Northern Alberta Jubilee Auditorium. That sounds like fun.
Yeah, I think they're playing the whole score with a full orchestra, which will always sound amazing. Video game music, completely orchestrated, always sounds amazing.
Awesome. We also have D&D 101 at Mission Fun and Games on November the 9th. That is designed for new players to see what Dungeons & Dragons is like and to learn the basic rules of the game. They do want you to register for this event, so if you're interested, you can go to Mission Fun and Games for more information. Also, on November the 10th, there is a Stranger Things 80s party. That sounds amazing. At The Needle. Yes, it is going to be an 80s dance party dedicated to the best era for the genre. They will play 80s music all night, and make sure you come dressed to look the part. So you can check out the Needle Vinyl Tavern for more information on the Stranger Things 80s dance party. That also sounds like a lot of fun. And Extra Life just wrapped up today, but they are having an after party. And when I first saw this, I was like, you're going to game for 24 hours and then have a party? Are you insane? The Extra Life after party is actually happening next Saturday at High Score.
Giving everybody a full week to recuperate.
Yeah, for sure. So everybody that participated, and anybody. The event is open to anyone. You can hang out with all the new friends you've made on game day or come and meet some new people. What else? All right, November 12th. Next weekend is going to be busy in Edmonton. November 12th is the Edmonton Collector Con at the Italian Cultural Center, where you can go check out all sorts of collectible items to add to your geek shelf. It is the last show of the year, so go and stock up on your Christmas gifts at the Edmonton Collector Con. Okay, this one looks like fun, and I have tried to go to this event a couple of times, but it hasn't panned out for me. The Tabletop Cafe is hosting another Knit Pearl Play evening. Actually, I think this one's an afternoon. Yes, Sunday, November 19th at 11 at the Tabletop Cafe downtown. So you bring your knitting, crocheting, yarn crafts, and play some board games as well. I am really looking forward to going to that sometime because that is right up my alley. I generally bring my crocheting with me while I play board games or RPG.
Yes, you do.
Then on December 1st, we talked about this one already, the Zelda Symphony. Worth mentioning again. And there is actually another event that Dan didn't add to this that I'm going to share. We have talked about it. One of our sponsors, the Edmonton Community Foundation, in conjunction with the Edmonton Public Library, is bringing George Takei in to speak. I believe it's November 29th. It's the last Wednesday. And I am going to go check that out. It sounds like a fun time with George Takei. So
that will be so cool.
Yeah, for sure.
And I also want to give a shout out and a reminder to all our nerds and nerdettes not to forget that this coming Saturday, November 11th, is Remembrance Day. The stat will be celebrated on the Monday, but ceremonies will be happening on the Saturday. A good one to check out in Edmonton is the big one that happens at the Butter Dome at the U of A. And don't forget your moment of silence at 11 o'clock.
For sure. And we also will not be having a Nerdcast next week because of the holiday. So
you'll have to wait one whole week for your next fix. I know it's tough, but you guys can do it. So before we get ready to sign off, Trina, where can our lovely listeners and viewers, if they want to go back and find out more information about all those events we just talked about, where can they find us on the web?
You can find us at northernnerdnetwork.com. There is a events link right on the website with all those events posted there. You can also find more about us on Twitter at northern_nerd, on Facebook at facebook.com/northernnerd, on YouTube at youtube.com/northernnerdnetwork, and also on Instagram, which I can't remember as of right now what we are. I think we are northern_nerd. You give me a second here. I can double check.
Yeah, Dan is on the Northern Nerd Twitter all the time, so if you tweet at Dan, he will gladly tweet back at you. And of course, if you are planning any nerdy events, or if you have a project you want to talk about and want to be on the show, head on over to the website, drop us an email, and we will gladly have you on to chat.
Absolutely.
Before we wrap up for the evening, one more time for the people in the back, where can they find you on the internet, on the web, and where can they support this wonderful project?
Sure, they can go to indiegogo.com and do a search for Wolverine Statue. And on Twitter, they can find us at Wolverine Statue, as well as at Singing Sam, which is SANGHINGSAM.
And how long is the campaign running? How long do they have to get out there and throw some support behind this awesome plan?
Until December 23rd, but the sooner is always better to generate some more excitement and some interest. So everybody is welcome to contribute as soon as they hear about it.
Amazing.
That would make an awesome early Christmas present for somebody. Just a little
make a donation in their name.
Absolutely. Yeah. You can have a part of Wolverine.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much for being our guest this evening, Sam. I know I say it often on the show, but we love having guests who are clearly passionate about what they're doing, and you are clearly passionate about this project, and rightfully so. It's amazing, and like I said, just a really feel-good project. So thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Awesome. We also want to thank everybody who listens to the show and ask everyone to share it with your friends on social media. The Northern Nerdcast is a proud member of the Alberta Podcast Network, powered by ATB, and is produced by me, along with Chelsea Thompson and Daniel Schessel. That's all the time we have, and I'd like to thank everybody for listening to this edition of the Nerdcast. And I get to do it. I will see you on the next one.